Knuckles.
Love you.
Love you too. And
We are live.
We are live.
We are live.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
YouTube live.
YouTube live. Well, you guys, welcome. We are so excited to be with you this morning on our YouTube live. And if you have not been following the ministry, we just want to introduce ourselves. We are Scott and Vanessa Martindale, counselors, therapists, coaches, blended family.
I'm just trying to think of all the things. Parents to 4 great kids.
4 sons.
Yes, and 4 dogs.
It's Harry.
And just all around, just normal people who love encouraging those and love having a good time.
Yeah. Well, we're excited today, you guys. Thank you for joining us. We are going to be talking about, there's some new buzzwords, and I've been seeing it more and more and more ever since you brought it up to me the other day. But Scott came home the other day and started talking to me about masculine and feminine energy. And I had never heard those terms before. And as it would be after that conversation, of course, AI picks up everything.
Your phone listens to everything, by the way, and
didn't know. And on all my reels and everything that I was seeing on social media was then on masculine and feminine energy. But it's been something that a lot of people have been talking about lately, and so we just want to bring just this topic to light and how when we step into our masculine and feminine energies, how this can bring out the best in our spouse and how that can improve our marriage.
Well, and as a counselor, and I predominantly do marriage counseling, it's one of the issues that I see as one of the core roots of problems in marriage.
Yeah.
Is that we're not living and doing the way God designed marriage and not living within the roles that God designed us to be in. Yeah. And our culture doesn't help us.
No. Well, and that's where I was going. I think, and it's a lot has changed since, since we were brought up in the 1970s and the 1980s. I mean, it's very much changed where, females have, a lot of females have taken on the role of, and everybody's situation is different. I was a single mom, so I was the leader of my home and, took on this role of taking care of my son. And then whenever we got married, I know that kind of caused some issues because, you had 2 very dominant leading type of people come together and cause some issues. But yeah, I think you're right. I think culture has very much, put emphasis on things that, have changed it up where men, it's almost like we're adopting the other, like men are becoming a little bit more feminine or women are becoming a little bit more masculine in different ways.
Yeah, and it just throws everything off. And what I tell couples is, hey, listen, let's get back to the basics. Let's get back to the way you were designed to function in marriage and start practicing things that help your husband be your husband and help your wife be your wife, and live in that kind of balance of you're in the roles that you're supposed to be in.
Well, you said something the other day. We do a lot of coaching for couples, and we had a couple, and I remember you had said something the other day about how, we take an active part in forming and creating who our spouse is, how we're breathing into them, speaking over them, the things that we do for them, and how that will help create them to be the person that God's created them to be.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's really hard to coach and to counsel and to explain, because I think people have this a little bit of a misconception that, and maybe sometimes it's true, maybe sometimes a partner does take on their own role and it's kind of against the grain. But in most cases I tell spouses, like, you're going to create the husband you want, and you're going to create the wife that you want, and you have influence over that. You have a way that, I don't want to use the word control, but I want to use the word, hey, you can do the things that make your spouse an unbelievable spouse and an example of what God's created and what God creates for them. Or you can do the opposite. You can, there's nobody who can hurt you more than a spouse can hurt you. And by their words, by their actions, but the exact can't get my words around today. The exact same thing is true the opposite way. You can also build your spouse in a way that is absolutely amazing as well, but it cannot be accidental. It's got to be intentional.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
let's just define what masculine and feminine energy is, just in case that you're curious about it. So masculine energy is assertive and dominant. Those are big words. I'm just going to put them out there. While feminine is intuitive and nurturing, meaning I can't be as nurturing as you. I can't be as nurturing as the way God created you to be. And God created me as a leader and to be assertive. So those are my natural roles to be in. So if you're listening to this and you're kind of going, I don't know if this is the issue in my marriage. I don't know if this is the issue between my spouse.
Yeah.
We're going to go about this and talk about it from really two different ways. We're going to talk about it in a way that says, hey, from a man and a woman perspective, you can bring out your own masculine energy or your own feminine qualities. I know you don't like the word energy.
I feel like the word energy is weird.
Yeah.
It's like,
I don't
know. Yeah.
it can get weird. It's kind of, again, it's a buzzword. It's one of those you put on Google. We want you to be in the role that God designed you. So God designed men to be masculine. God designed women to be feminine and nurturing. So we're going to talk about it from a way that you can increase your own, and then you can also help that in your spouse. So we're going to go two different ways about this. And I have my handy dandy laptop here that's going to help me do that. So let's talk about the men.
Yeah. Well, and before we get started on that, I do want to say, you guys, be interactive with us, engage. If you have any questions, we will be sure to get to hopefully all of those at the end. If we not, we will get to some of those. So be sure to put some questions in the chat along the way. Let us know where you're from. Hello, we're glad y'all are joining with us if you just popped on. But Scott, go ahead.
Yeah. So talking to the men here, ways that you can increase your masculine presence. How about presence?
Presence, I like
Yeah.
it.
So first, cultivate a strong mindset. You know, we have the ability to think in certain ways. So cultivating a strong mindset is deciding that you're going to move in a certain direction and embracing challenges. Men love the idea of setting a goal and achieving that goal. So embrace those challenges and a positive mental attitude. So this idea that you can think like, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can accomplish that goal. Yes, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z in that order. Men love the idea of competition. We love the idea of putting a goal out in front of us, putting the practice of achieving that goal in play, and then achieving that goal. So cultivate a strong mindset. Physical activity and discipline.
Yeah.
So it's a big one. Regular exercise. You can do some of the more. What I love is there are a lot of like really masculine things you can do.
Yeah.
Like you can go chop wood if you want to. Now I am not a wood chopper by say, but every time I see a video of a guy chopping wood, I'm like,
it's like the most masculine thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like
it makes me think of the brawny guy, like on the, on
the towel.
Yeah.
Makes me think of like Tom Hanks in the movie Castaway when he like made fire.
Yeah.
And he's like, I made fire.
Yeah.
And that is such a like wow thing to do. But physical activity and discipline, regular exercise, connect with nature, get outside.
Yeah.
I know when I was growing up, and this is something we probably need to do more. I think we do. Like we go camping, but not like glamping. We would go camping like with a tent, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that was considered luxury to have a tent.
Yeah.
And a sleeping bag. But go camping, get outside, hike, do those things that are outside. Fish, fishing's good.
Be one in nature.
Yeah, grab a fish.
Grab a fish.
Do that thing. Develop leadership skills. This can either be through taking classes or maybe joining different leadership groups.
Having a mentor.
Yeah. But you are developing the things that push you to be a natural leader and teach you about being a natural leader. And the last one I'm going to talk about is fostering meaningful relationships, especially with other guys.
Yeah.
There's too many men out there who are riding solo.
Yeah.
And they are not intentional about getting good men around them. And you don't need 20. You don't need even 10. I mean, 2 or 3 is right. And guys that are out there, and you have those guy conversations. You're discussing more man level things.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you're getting into your manliness, your masculine, your
Manliness.
I'm going to also add a couple more in here. I want to say, make time for sports, make time for watching whatever your favorite sport is. And that's something that even a wife can do for a husband, like give him that space to do that.
Well, you've said a whole lot of stuff.
Yes.
So I just want to round this out a little bit. So I think, everything that you said is awesome, is how men can feed their masculine energy.
Yeah.
From a wife's perspective, like as you were saying all of this, what I thought about was how, as a wife, we can support our husband in each of those things. So when it comes to, having other male relationships, like providing that time for your husband to be able to cultivate those relationships, going to a men's night. I know we live in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area, so there's a lot of men's conferences that go on there. I know that there are several churches that were hosting some over the past couple of weeks. And so it's like carving out time and supporting your husband to be able to go do those things.
Yeah.
If it's, going to the gym, or you were talking about being outside and one in nature, just being supportive in those things. I think that one thing that men, when we talk a lot about needs, men's and women's needs, and one of the highest needs for men is honor and respect. And, and when we can feed, so to speak, that to our husband, and I think a lot of that is by words. And so I think a lot of times as wives, we have the influence to, and we have the, not power, so to speak, but I would say influence to really support our husbands by using words and, kind of feeding their ego, so to speak, of like, hey, you did this and that was amazing. Or, oh my gosh, like when you did this, it made me feel this way. And I think, with everything that you just said, as a wife, we can really support you, in those roles. And as we're telling you those things and showing you those things and being supportive, I think that feeds your masculine energy. And by nature, then you continue to act in that role as the leader of the home, as, if you're an athlete, whatever, as a father, as a husband.
Yeah. There's no doubt, wives, you can encourage this.
Yeah.
You can carve out time for them to do this. Generally, if you look at it and just take the normal family life, I mean, there's not a lot of time is the most precious commodity we have.
Yeah.
Because there's work, there's the kids, there's focus on marriage time. So individual time is scarce. So you have to be able to carve that out in a way that doesn't make your husband feel guilty for doing it. Because you don't want them to go and do these things and then be overlaid with a guilt or that phone call that says, why are you doing this again? Or you're spending too much time doing this. And you're like, okay, now you've got the opposite happening. You've got a man that's feeling guilty about doing anything for themselves. So they're going to naturally go away from that.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. Okay. Now we're going to switch over to the ladies. For a minute. So I will say, a lot of people have questions about which comes first. It's kind of like the chicken or the egg. I'm going to just take a route here. When you embrace your feminine energy or your feminine qualities, I will tell you, it is the first step to your husband releasing his masculine qualities. I think the wives in this have a little bit more effect than probably the men do. So, ladies, how to increase your feminine or your inner, what's the word I'm looking for? Inner beauty,
I don't know where you're going with that one.
I know, there's a lot here. Okay, so number one, get your body moving.
Get your body moving.
Moving motion. So this can be, I love the concept of, feel free to take a dance class, go out for a walk. It's just a body in movement.
Well, I lift weights.
Yeah.
So like dance for me, like don't get me wrong, like I love to cut a rug every now and then, but like for me, I love lifting weights.
Yeah.
And that seems manly, Well,
and I will say, in all honesty, when this topic first came up, but I went in and I was talking to Vanessa and I was like, listen, let's talk about this. And this was an area even we were like, okay, we need to we need some work in this area. We need some work in this area.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to encourage her, and we've done some things throughout the last few weeks that I think have been really fun about encouraging you.
So get the body moving.
Yeah, get the body moving. Allow time for, quiet time.
Yeah.
Allow more time for reflective conversations. Be within yourself. So whether that is, like yoga, or a lot of people like their quiet time, or just that moment where you can just kind of be quiet.
Yeah.
Spend time with other women. Do women things.
Yeah.
Go get your nails done. Go get your toes done. The next one is retail therapy. Go shopping. Do things that with other women what else do women do?
Well, I think, a lot of, going to lunches together, doing life group together, a women's group together, things like that.
Okay. So treat yourself well and make time for self-care as a priority. So that is working out. I know, doing skincare routines. I'm speaking a lot for women here. I don't know exactly what I'm talking about. And y'all are probably laughing at me, but there's certain things about, the hour-long skin. What is that?
A facial.
Okay. But what is that y'all do every night? Like with all the stuff?
It's like your bedtime, nighttime skincare routine is what it is.
Okay. Got it. It seems like a lot, but do that. Book a day of pampering. Pamper yourself. And do things that spark your creativity. So whether that's crafts, whether that is, reading, interior design, that's a big one. But also doing things that spark creativity even within your kids.
Yeah.
Being in that role where you are the creative person.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're feeding that part of your desires.
Yeah. Well, and I would say, as I was speaking from like the wife's perspective earlier, husbands can really support their wives in that. I think the one thing that wives really need to step into those qualities, a lot of times it's just time. It's being able to take time for self, because there's so much pouring out, and not that fathers don't do this or dads don't do this. Men don't do this, but women pour out a lot, especially as the mom, and if you're a working mom, to your children, to your husband, family, friends, all of those things. And so it's again, I love that you talked about self-care, and doing the things that refuel and renew you and refresh you. So there's a difference there. Like what renews you and what refreshes you. Like I feel refreshed after I go to the spa, and like I just had a facial done last Friday, and I loved it because I took 2 hours out of the month, for myself to go do that. And it was amazing. But what renews me is like when I go to a women's conference and I'm worshiping with other women and I'm in the Word and I'm in my Bible. That's what renews me. And so I think for women, it's husbands can really support them in their feminine energy to allow them to have the time and the space. And again, it's like, taking the kids, so that they can have that time. Planning, a half a morning that, hey, I've got, the house taken care of so that you can go do something for yourself. So I think that's one aspect that husbands can really support their wives in that part of it.
Absolutely. And there's others too. So we've talked about ways you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
And we've talked about for a husband and a wife. So now we're going to kind of move into a different direction where what can husbands do that can help their wife feel more feminine? Okay. So number one, take them feeling like a woman seriously. And that's and there's so many little things that you can do. And I think over the time of marriage, you kind of get a little bit lazy. You get a little bit kind of just accepting of like this and that. But it's like opening your door, or it's like the moments when you see your wife doing something a little bit more nurturing and you encourage that, or you, like you said, carve out the time to do that. That's not necessarily just a gift to your wife. It's a gift to your marriage.
Yeah.
It's a gift that you say, hey, listen, I take this very seriously. So if my wife says, hey, I want to go to this women's conference and it's in Oregon. You went to one in Oregon one time.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, Portland. It's like, no, that's serious. I need to make sure that she has that time. She has guilt-free time to go do that. So anytime that Vanessa tells me, she's like, I want to go do this, I'm like, okay, this is a serious thing. I need to make sure that I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Second thing is help them feel free of judgment for openly being more feminine. Okay, now, this goes against everything the rational male mind is the whole way. I mean, we really have to try to do this.
Yeah. Okay.
So there are moments when your wife is doing things that, whether she's talking about things or maybe she wants to go do something that you're like, wow, that's
the look that I get whenever I say something, and you're like,
well, it's me rationally bargaining the concept of, okay, I think that's really not good, but I need to think about this, and okay, that's for my wife. So the facial expressions that don't tell the story. It's just me kind of coming to a conclusion. But you got to be free of judgments, because the last thing you want to do is stifle what your wife's doing. I'm thinking of other examples, like you mentioned interior design. Vanessa loves to redecorate our house, and I think over the last decade, I've just kind of come to the conclusion that sometimes you're going to do something, and I'm like,
he doesn't like it like 90% of the time. But here's the thing.
I wouldn't say 90. I would say like maybe 50. Maybe 50.
And then you end up liking it. Like I'll hear 6 months later, babe, that's really nice. This is really growing on.
Well, that's what I'm encouraging.
Yes, you are.
But those are the opportunities when your wife's like, oh, I did something, and you're like, okay, that didn't really make a lot of sense, but okay, I'm not going to judge you for this. I'm not going to make you feel bad for expressing your creativeness. I'm not going to make you feel bad for maybe buying, something about your facial routine that it's like, okay.
Well, and I think a good thing, it's like you're not shooting it down, right?
Yeah.
And you're being supportive of it. You're like, okay, that really doesn't make sense to me, but if it makes sense to you and it's making you feel more feminine and, more in your role as a wife or a mom, that's awesome.
I think one of the things that comes to my mind is like the types of shampoo that your wife uses. I'm like, it blows my mind. I'm like, wow, that's, first of all, it's expensive. Second of all, like, you're not supposed to use that. So it's just a way of like this whole marriage of like men and women coming together and the things that women do. I'm like, okay. But again, not being judgmental, just kind of saying, hey, listen, this is what my wife wants, and I'm going to encourage that.
Yeah.
Avoid rationally bargaining with your wife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's just stop for a second on this one. So there are different ways that men and women have conversations and approach problems.
Yeah.
So sometimes women just want to have a more emotional conversation about a topic. Mm-hmm. And there may be a really valid, rational explanation for that.
Yeah.
But that's not what y'all want.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a good thing to practice, you guys, because a lot of times, I'll come to you and I'm emotional about something, another thing is that I need to make a decision about something.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been really great about, you say two things. You're like, do you want my advice or do you want me to listen and support? And
I will say, I only say that when I'm really thinking, because if you say it once, you get all the credit in the world for it.
Well, and then deciphering the two, it gives your husband an avenue to know, where to kind of tailor your expectations of the conversation. But also too, it's like, don't have, $100 conversation in a dime moment, you know? And so you want to be intentional about that conversation. And you can tell that your wife is, highly emotional or being reactive, it gives you an opportunity to kind of form what that response is going to be, and your thought process behind, what that conversation is going to look like and how to steer that conversation and be supportive in that.
Yeah, if you can imagine, maybe your wife has spent hours and hours and hours and hours thinking about this topic or this situation. And at one point she brings it to you and you're making, really rational kind of, this is bargaining, but it's really just kind of, okay, do this or do that.
Yeah.
And there are so many other things that are accompanying that. But here's what it does when you do that. It also makes her kind of regret or discount the entire emotional process that she's been through.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is basically saying none of that time you spent on that matters.
Yeah.
really only thing that matters is my masculine bargaining of saying either do this or do that. And it really just diminishes or makes them feel bad, or it's judgmental of their entire emotional process. So we're encouraging ways for you to be more feminine. And God made you this way. God made you very emotional. So why are we as husbands stifling that?
Yeah.
We need to, understand that in those moments where there is an emotional energy brought to us, hey, listen, there's a time to just say, okay, let me just listen to you and just say, supportive things. You're not looking for a rational answer. I don't mean to say that bad. It's just, there's not a rational answer to come to. It's going to be an emotional charged answer at the end of this. So just let them have that process.
Yeah.
So next thing, get caught up in the moment with her and feel excited about what she's doing. So this is where I need to work. I am generally an ABC type of guy.
Yeah.
So my thought process is always moving forward. So sometimes it's hard to get caught in that moment where, she brings you something or she tells you something and she's excited about it. And you're kind of like this internal clock of going, okay, I'll give 3 seconds of attention here, but I'm not going to give any more than that.
Yeah.
So why do wives want their husband to feel excited about what they're excited about?
Well, I think it's exciting. Like, I know for me, for example, we'll go back to the decorating thing. So I've always wanted to have kind of like a Christmas theme for our house. And so last year I asked Scott, I was like, hey, I really want to do the house big for Christmas this year and have a theme. And he was like, okay, go for it. And then I will never forget the day that we set it all up. Scott walked into the house and he goes, this is a little too much. This is a little too much. And I was so excited, you guys, because I was like, this is amazing. It's beautiful. It looked like, I don't know, the Griswolds on steroids. It was awesome. And I was so excited. And when he came in, it totally took the wind out of my sail, because he was just like, this is over the top. This is too much. Instead of joining in on my excitement. So then it automatically made me, I felt guilt. I felt guilty for, one, spending the money on it. I felt and then I was like, oh, well, we could have used that for something else. And then I thought, oh, well, that was a stupid idea. I should have never have done that. And then my mind went to, oh, he really didn't want me to do that to begin with. And so my mind went all these different directions when really, you were just thinking it's a little over the top, Vanessa.
Well, and I will say, in that moment, when you walk into your house and you're like, oh my gosh, Christmas just threw up at my house. I mean, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And I will say in the next day or two, I was like, man, I really enjoyed this. And I'm glad you did this. And you were so creative in this way. And I love that you put these colors in. Sometimes your immediate reaction may not be right, but you can, you have quality of control over your mind and what you say. So over time, it was like, okay, let me encourage you in this way.
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny. And I want to kind of pivot the conversation a little bit, because I thought this would be so important to talk about today, but submission with wives and husbands and the feminine and masculine energy. So we had a coaching session last week, and one of the issues was with the wife was that she was really having a hard time submitting to her husband. And it was just a constant argument. If he said this, she was she would, go against that. And if she said this, he would go against it. And so there wasn't this mutual submission to each other. And that's when you really stepped in and you started talking about the masculine and feminine energy. Because I think a lot of couples struggle with this, that when we're not walking in how God created us to be as wives and moms and husbands and dads, then there becomes this almost competition or comparison. And that's where the disunity, and I think where the enemy really comes in to put a wedge. Yeah. And the way that you talked about it, I loved it, because you talked about how when husbands are walking in their full masculine energy or qualities, it then allows the wife to, one, fully trust and submit in the way that we're supposed to our husbands, and vice versa. Wives are very wise. Pastor Jimmy Evans talks about this a lot, how wives have the gift of wisdom and discernment. And whenever we are fully walking in those gifts, in our feminine energy, so to speak, the husbands, it allows you to fully trust us and trust our discernment and take on our wisdom and really seek that advice from your wife. And that's where you both can make decisions together. Because I think what we see a lot with married couples is, you're, especially in blended families, well, we can't get on the same page with our discipline. We can't be on the same page with our co-parenting.
Yeah.
We're not even on the same page in our marriage because we can't communicate together. And I think a lot of it is because we're not acting in each other roles, or we're crisscrossing it. And then there's a lack of mutual respect and a lack of mutual submission for one another.
Yeah. It's, again, 20 years as a therapist, it's one of the most common things I see.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping if you're watching this and you're thinking about what you do on a daily basis and how you're encouraging and also the responsibility that you have, that you're going to create the spouse that you want, and that you're also responsible for those behaviors. So we just talked about increasing what he can do to increase for her. So just in that same breath of conversation, what she can do to increase his energy, masculine. And the first thing is embrace your femininity.
Yeah.
Embrace that. Husbands cannot be husbands without a wife. And so embrace that, take that seriously. If you want to inspire your husband to be in his role, and I truly believe, I think, and we've heard this from speakers, I do think that women have a lot more impact and influence over who their husband is. I really do. And embracing who you are as a feminine creation of God is going to automatically put him into that role. His number one need is honor and respect. And so by giving him that, it's automatically going to make him feel more masculine. And you talked about submission. Submission is only viable when a wife can fully expect and trust that her husband is following the will of God.
It's good.
If he is following the will of God, she can literally close her eyes, put something over her eyes, and trust that he is leading. And wherever she ends up, she's going to be happy.
Right. And I think we see a lot of wives, and we get this a lot in the couples that we counsel, that we coach. It's wives try to step into that leadership role and that spiritual leadership role because there's a lack of it in the home. And it's a lot of, I think it is that judgment or that spirit of comparison of like, well, they're not doing this. Well, they're not leading our children in this or prayer, blah, 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 blah. And I think as wives, we have to allow room for them to get there. They are, I think one of the things that we struggled with even the beginning of our marriage was our relationship with the Lord is our own relationship with the Lord. Yeah. And then we have a relationship together with him. And it really takes time sometimes for your spouse to get there, but allowing them the room to do that, continue to pray for your spouse, in their relationship with the Lord. Yeah. I know that, and again, I said, we struggled with that, but we see that a lot. And I think where women, and I will say this with single moms, I was that single mom. Yeah. Because I took Michael and I to church every Sunday. We led at church. We volunteered. I led all the prayers. And then whenever we came together, that wasn't something you were used to. No. Not even praying out loud. And I remember just having this like, I'm your Holy Spirit and you need to do this. And it was just such a critical spirit, and it really tore you down. And it took me being with a mentor to really learn that, I had to give you the time and space to get there. Yeah. And now Scott is an amazing leader of our family and of our boys, and he leads us spiritually, and I do as well. It's a co-leadership, but I am when we have to make decisions, I trust that you are being Holy Spirit led, and I give you my advice and I give you my wisdom, but we're also coming together and making those decisions together because I trust you as the leader of our home. And so I just want to say, if there's anyone out there that's, maybe this is your situation, like, guys, give it prayer, give it patience, and give it time. Give that time to your spouse. Well, and avoid comparisons too. Yeah. We also grew up in a world where, pastors, they were pretty, I'm going to use the word tame. They got up, they preached. Today, you get online, you see,
almost a form of entertainment in terms of what's the pastor. And so there's a spirit of comparison that kind of comes in there. Like, I want my husband to be this.
Oh, yeah.
I want him to be able to go up and speak in front of 20,000 people and be, charismatic and all these different. God didn't design every person that way.
Yeah.
So your husband has a unique and owns the ability to be your spiritual leader, but it may not look like everybody else's.
Yeah.
So give him that space to be unique in that way. So the next thing is communicate with love.
Ooh.
So I've told Vanessa this.
Hey guys, I want to, before you
Oh,
go on
okay.
that, I want to say we've got a lot of good questions that have come in. We are going to get to these questions at the end. So I just wanted to say that.
We're going to finish this and we're going to go to
keep them
questions.
coming. These are some good questions.
So communicate with love. I cannot be the nurturer that Vanessa can. I don't have the same touch. I don't have the same tone. I can't be you. And so in that way, you encourage his masculine role by being feminine, by being a female, by understanding that you can communicate with love, you can communicate with patience, demonstrating those qualities.
Yeah.
So this is my favorite one. Let go of control. That includes when you're driving.
Well, one of the questions was what is unhealthy feminine and masculine energies? And control is one of them. And we're going to go into that in here in a little bit. But that was a good one.
So do we want to just jump into the control now? Is that what we're going to do?
We'll just go into what you were saying.
So I will say this. Control is that concept of saying, hey, listen, you're leading, I'm not. And I understand, and we play around with this a lot. Every husband I know will say the same thing. Driving with your wife is just the opposite of encouraging these two energies.
If y'all want to know if there's one thing that Scott and I fight about, it's driving in the car when he's driving.
And note that I've never had an accident, and she's had 3. So anyway, but that's one of the ways. It's like, I love the video that I've seen. It's like the wife is sitting there and she's like, grabbing on for your life. And she's like, I can't say anything because I've already said 2 things and he's already told me, do you want to drive? So there's a way that you can do that. Next one, this was more fun. Be playful. Embrace the.
And you're talking about communication.
Yeah, on communication, I'm talking about your daily actions.
Yeah.
Just be playful. It's like yesterday I came up and I was like, I gave you a big old bear hug and I was like, hey, this wouldn't work if I was smaller than you. And, and that's just the playfulness of us just understanding our roles.
Yeah.
Focus on what you want. And that was the part where we talk about building. That's almost like I use the term build a bear. Build a husband. Like if you want to build him into the type of man God's created him, focus on what you want exactly. Appreciate and admire.
That's good.
Your words to men are like the gold, the water, the food. They are everything that they need. So when you appreciate them, when you admire them, when you tell them you're proud of them, there's nothing more joyful for a husband to hear.
Well, scripture reminds us like the power of life and death is in the tongue.
Yes.
And so, the words that we speak, not only to your husband, but husbands to wives too, it has so much power and so much influence. And I think that's a lot of, not where we get our identity from, but it's a lot of that reassurance of, who God has created us to be, the gifts that we have. And I think that's where we as spouses can pull out the gold in each other. Like, babe, you are so creative. Like, I love what you did with these Christmas decorations.
I do.
Or, hey, babe, like, driving in the car, like, I appreciate you. It really is a sore topic, y'all. I really appreciate you getting us here safely. Like, that one's kind of corny, but you get where I'm going.
I would just say this. If you're battling this dilemma right now, the one thing that I would tell you could do immediately is you pick up your phone and you're sending your husband a text and just say, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the work that you do. I'm so proud of the way you lead our family.
Yeah.
If you want to see your husband blossom quickly, start with those words. Next one is ask for help. Men love to help. So it's like, hey, can you get the ladder?
Are these just for men or for wives?
This is the way wives can encourage men.
Okay.
This is that topic.
Okay.
So ask for help. Ask him for his advice. Hey, I'm struggling here. What do you think? Men love that process. And then the last one I would say is embrace the brotherhoods that he has.
Yeah.
I know that's one of the things that Vanessa does really well. It's because I have a core group that I love to spend time with. We don't spend a ton of time, but when we're together, like that's sacred time for us. We really do that. And all of our wives really embrace the fact that we have a great friendship, and they encourage that. Okay. So those are ways you can increase masculine energy.
What about feminine?
We already did feminine.
Okay. I was just making sure. Okay. Well, I want to go to our questions because we've got about 20 minutes left.
Let's go.
Okay. So I want to get to some of these questions, but first question was, what is unhealthy and feminine and masculine energy? And you talked about control, which is one. So we can kind of label these as mature masculine and feminine energy and immature. So mature, when you're coming from like more of the masculine side, so the father, the husband, protection, leadership, direction, stability. It can be, clarity, things like that. Those are more mature traits, so to speak, that are qualities that are healthy. Now, when you're talking about unhealthy or immature, this would be more like violence,
intimidation,
control, avoidance, arrogance, abuse of power. Those are some of the unhealthy traits that you could see. And again, like, let's go back to what the Word of God says and what is good and what is not. Like, what does His Word say about those things? For feminine, I think some of the unhealthy or immature, traits, so to speak, could be, we tend to get very overwhelmed. We'll have low self-worth, like I'm unworthy, low self-esteem, confusion and uncertainty, like just don't know what to do. Anxiety. Sometimes these are some of the unhealthy things that we can go to,
or manipulation.
Yeah, that's another one. But some of the mature and healthy traits would be like, again, discernment and wisdom, intuition, surrender, being sensitive, nurturing, being open to ideas or to the things that your spouse is saying to you.
Yeah. I think that we always have to, it's almost like looking at the gas gauge. We have to see where we are all the time. You know, what are we bringing into our marriage on a daily basis or on a monthly or yearly basis of saying, hey, where am I at right now? And where's my gauge of how feminine I'm being or how masculine I'm being? Having really good accountability partners. This is where close friendships come in. I don't see enough marriages that have really good friendships that really are wanting healthy marriages. So asking your guy friends and your girlfriends, like, hey, this is going on, am I off base here? Or, is something wrong? And how do I kind of right the ship? But what I would say this is, if you are in an unhealthy marriage, this is more than likely an issue that you're dealing with. And the flip side of that is getting with a good counselor, getting with a good, Christian-based counselor and saying, hey, we're just not seeing eye to eye here. Can you point out kind of where we are in our natural roles?
Sometimes I think it takes that third party and just that godly counsel and perspective of, hey, I'm hearing and seeing you say this, and this. Like, here's an outside perspective. I think sometimes when we're so in it, it's just like that. There's that veil, and there's a little bit of deception, and we can't see exactly right. But the next question was, how do I heal and restore masculine energy in my husband that I have wounded? This is a good one, and I think it first starts with just asking for forgiveness. If you know that you have said or done something that has wounded your husband or that has hurt his heart, I think one, surrendering it to the Lord, forgiving yourself. But also going to your spouse and saying, hey, I am so sorry that I have stepped in and tried to take control over this situation, or have tried to overstep my boundaries as you are the leader of our home. I think first it's just, just asking for forgiveness, starting there, covering yourself in prayer, covering your spouse in prayer, covering your marriage in prayer, and then going to your spouse and first pray and ask the Holy Spirit for, like, Holy Spirit, like, show me what it is that I need to say or that I need to do to help my spouse. And then go to your spouse and do those things. Be obedient in what he is asking you to do in that healing and repairing process. If it's getting with a godly or Christian counselor to help you guys through that, or just yourself, start there. And then I think, again, it's our words and our actions, going to your spouse and doing the opposite. Like, what is it that he needs to receive from you, and from the Lord, to help those places begin to heal. And so, if it's a wounding that happened maybe during sexual intimacy, and now there's this, wall, and you guys can't, get past that, going to your spouse and talking through that, and talking through the things that you both enjoy, that you don't enjoy. Where can you come together in a commonality in that intimacy, so to speak? Seeing a sex therapist, if that's where you've got to go with that. But I think first it starts with forgiveness, getting in tune with the Holy Spirit, asking for his wisdom. James 1:5, ask for his wisdom and knowledge over the situation. And then going to your spouse and just loving on them and reassuring them and telling them, how you see them and how much you love them.
Yeah, and the most obvious one is just ask your husband what he needs.
Yeah,
I mean, men don't generally beat around the bush.
Yeah.
And they will tell you. So asking him, say, hey, listen, I want to make you, a lot of times this whole concept of masculine energy, I want to make you feel more like a man. How do you want me to do that? I want you to feel confident in your role as my husband. How do you want me to do that? Mm-hmm. And be open to his suggestions.
Yeah.
Be open to, him saying, hey, listen, this is what I like. You don't go to a restaurant and order something you don't want. You go to the restaurant and you say, I like this, so this is what I want.
Yeah.
Be open to those feedbacks of saying, hey, when you do this, it really hurts me. It hurts my, my precious ego or whatever that may be.
Yeah.
But just asking him, what do you want me to be? Like, how do you want me to treat you?
Yeah.
And be open to his feedback. And then I would say start with little deposits of maybe it's that text message you send every day that says, hey,
yeah.
I'm proud of you. Or, hey, this text message that says, hey, you looked really good today. Men don't get that a lot. It's not like men walk in and we get showered with compliments of, oh, I love your outfit. Men don't get that. We just don't. So we rely on it. You're the only one who can give us that.
Yeah.
You're the only one that we seek that from.
Yeah.
And so be open into giving us that.
Well, and I think it starts with creating a safe environment. So, putting defensiveness to the side and being or creating an atmosphere in your marriage. And, if you're meeting at the kitchen table, to make it a safe place to be like, hey, like, no judgment here. I don't want there to be any defensiveness. I just really want to hear from you what it is that you need from me. And as the wife, or if it's the husband, if it's the situation's opposite, make sure that you are listening and that you have a posture of, okay, I'm here to listen and hear what it is that my spouse needs and want from me without getting defensive, and without being critical. So creating a safe and healthy atmosphere to be able to express that to one another, I think is key.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a couple more questions, right?
Yeah. And then next question. Have y'all, Scott and Vanessa, ever felt unsupported of each other? Yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can remember a 100% example, but there's moments where we've questioned each other. I think we've questioned, I don't know if we've ever questioned the core of who we are.
Yeah.
I think we've questioned circumstances that have developed in front of us and have been overly critical of each other. I think that's one of the things Vanessa and I are really trying really hard to do is watch our words, watch how we speak to each other, and understand that even in the heat of the moment, sometimes it's better to say nothing than to be critical or to stifle or step on these different roles. What was the one that you were thinking about?
The one I was thinking about was the ministry one.
Yeah.
It was a big one. When the Lord spoke to me about starting BKF, he didn't tell that to Scott. He spoke that to me. And it really took, Scott was like, and I had just finished nursing school. I'd put all this time, energy, and effort, 3 years into nursing school.
Yeah.
And literally 2 weeks from starting my OR internship or residency, the Lord threw me into ministry. And we, for you, it was like, no, like we have sacrificed. We have sacrificed financially, sacrificed time. and he didn't quite understand it. And I knew what the Lord was telling me. And so again, it was having the patience for one another. And yeah, motives were questioned. Like, you didn't understand it, but over time, the Lord showed you that, and I remember having the conversation and you apologized in the car. You were like, hey, I'm sorry if I have not been supportive of you and what God is, calling us to do in the ministry. And then like you fully stepping into it and us doing it together. I mean, it's been absolutely amazing, incredible. But that was a big one that I remember. Because, again, we had gone through so much and it didn't make sense. And of course, anything that God asks you to do, sometimes doesn't make sense. But that was one thing. And we've learned so much from that. And I think it's, at the core root, I trust and love and believe the best in you. And so I know that when you're coming at me with something, and again, you guys, this has taken almost 11 years to get there. Because in the beginning, and especially with what your background has been from your previous marriage, there was a lot of questioning, and I questioned a lot of your motives as you did mine. And over time, we built that foundation of trust and we've gotten there. And so it takes time, you guys, and it takes intentionality and practice and discipline and prayer.
Yeah. And I would just say this too, it doesn't happen accidentally, it happens intentionally. Yeah. If you've been in that situation where you maybe have made mistakes, understand, you're never taught how to be married perfectly. Yeah. You have to practice, you have to learn. And so, there have been opportunities for us to really take a hard dive at, looking at who we are, the type of marriage that we want. But we also, and this is probably the kind of the zinger of it, we also know we're not even close to the end.
Oh gosh. No.
So we're constantly looking at this going, okay, we've still got a ways to go. We're still facing situations where our marriage is tested. We still face situations where my leadership is tested, where her motherhood is tested. And we have to look at it and go, okay, what are we going to do today that's going to make us better tomorrow? Yeah. And we have to be submitting ultimately to God's word, ultimately to what God tells us. It's not necessarily just submitting to each other. We're trying to submit to God first and say, hey, listen, you're the director here. We're trying to learn as much as we can day to day from you. And we can't do it without you being the first priority. That's why we talk about God being the first priority, our marriage being second, and our kids being third. You can't step those out of order. You won't find the right balance if you're not submitting to God first.
That's good.
So
yeah. Okay. So we've got a few more questions, but I think we're only going to have time to get to one more, you guys. And then we'll be sure to answer these in the chat for you. So go back and look. Or you can email us at info@blendedkingdomfamilies.com with your question and we can answer it there for you. But this is more of a statement, and I think you would have a great response for this, Scott. But it says, my husband admits he doesn't know what to do with emotions. When I let him know how I feel about something, it's like an immediate argument, but not what my intention was.
So this is a diagnosed question. So let me take it from a few different perspectives. So one, and this is to a husband's good and to his fault, husbands generally have a top line goal of making sure their wife is happy and she's taken care of. Yeah. So when we see chaos, or when we see pain, or when we see frustration, we sometimes don't know how to react to it. Yeah. And that's a part of husbands maturing and understanding that that's okay. We talked about letting and giving her the freedom to live in that femininity, which is the expressive of emotions. So sometimes we have to learn to do that. Yeah. So when you're bringing those situations to your husband, if you've brought it to him in certain ways and he hasn't reacted correctly, maybe we try to bring that in a different way to say, hey, listen, I'm not trying to attack you. I'm not trying to tell you you're doing a bad job. I'm just telling you this is how I feel today. Yeah. And I'd love to discuss it. Marriage has got to be in a place where you have a little receiving to do. So you're not just two brick walls receiving. It's almost like you're absorbing what's happening. So you're you're co-collaborators. Exactly. Right? Yeah. But you can't be in a situation where one brings something and they hit a brick wall and then bounce off. It's almost like you've got to bring it to them. You've got to be able to absorb it and then receive. So both husband and wives need to approach their daily marriage and say, hey, listen, if my spouse brings me something, I'm here to receive it, but I'm also going to think about how I respond and think about these roles as her in her femininity, my husband's role in his masculine side. How am I going to absorb that and make sure that we stay in those roles and that we can bring out the best in each other? So to answer your question,
that's good. And it goes into a second question. So I
Yeah.
want you to finish, but what about telling your husband your need and they don't do it, which I think you're kind of going there. So,
well, this doesn't happen by accident. So if you're a husband listening to this and you don't feel like you're respected, there's a reason that's there. You have a responsibility as well. So you can't just sit back and go, well, it's my way or the highway and I'm not getting what I want. I'm telling you, first of all, bring this up in conversation to your wife. Say, hey, listen, let's talk about this because I don't feel very masculine in our marriage. And I don't want you to feel not feminine. So let's talk about this.
Yeah.
This is not something that you're going to just roll out of bed tomorrow and be good at. So that would be my encouragement to husbands is if you're not asking that question to your wife saying, hey, do I make you feel feminine? And you're not ready to hear the answer, then I would say you have a lot of growing to do in your marriage because you need to be able to ask that question. That's part of leadership. Leadership is not just blindly follow me. Leadership is saying, hey, listen, I have a responsibility to these people in my house. And my responsibility first is to elevate them to what God is calling them to be. That's my responsibility. Jimmy Evans says it best. My goal on earth is to make sure that she reaches her God-given potential. Whatever God has for her, it's my responsibility to get there. That's why when you brought up the ministry, I may not have received that the first time very well. But I also got in my head going, okay, if God's laid it on her heart to be in ministry, my job is to go 100% and make sure that she gets to her potential. That's my job as her husband.
That's good.
So I have to receive that. But first, I had to be ready to submit to God's will first.
Well, and I think that's the key to this. And if they don't do it, it's the submitting to God and what He wants. And so that's why that relationship is so important. Going back to the priorities, like God, marriage, and then family. So that's good. Well, you guys, we do have a couple more questions. We're going to answer those in the chat for you. But we're coming to the end of our time.
Love this.
Yeah, it's been great. You guys, we're going to be doing a live every month. And so we want you guys to submit your questions. Like, what is it that you want us to address and talk about? Again, it can be mental health related to your blended family, on marriage, pre-marriage. We kind of do it all.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. But we hope that you guys enjoyed this topic today. Again, if you have any questions, continue to put those in the chat. We'll answer them. Our team will get back to you as soon as possible. But we appreciate you all being here today, and we can't wait to see you until next month. Again, don't forget to submit those topics. You can email us at info@blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Also, you guys, the Blended Family Conference is coming up October 5th here in Colleyville, Texas at Compass Church. You can attend online or in person. You guys, you do not want to miss this event.
Well, we'd love to see you in person. It's going to be an amazing event.
Yes. So Scott and myself will be speaking along with Jimmy Evans. We have some more speakers that we'll be announcing soon. It is a day to come together with your spouse and other blended families and other couples and just get equipped and supported and find community. So go to our website, go to our events page and sign up today. We have early bird pricing going on. Y'all, it ends at the end of May. So go on right now and get your tickets at a discounted price. You can also purchase a meal voucher as well.
And if you're a husband and you're watching this and you're like, dude, I need things for I got a Mother's Day coming up. I need to be in the leadership role of moving, doing something good. Yeah. So, hey, listen, tell your wife, like, hey, listen, I got us tickets to the Blended Family Conference. I got us hotel reservations. We're going to go spend a weekend, just you and I. Big brownie points if you come up with the idea.
Absolutely. And then you guys, if you didn't know, we do have our coaching program that we launched this year. We have several coaches, and we do everything from pre-marriage, marriage, your blended family, co-parenting, litigation, whatever it is that you are needing within your blended family or your marriage. We are here to help and support you with that. We do have a pre-marriage group that will be starting in the fall.
Ooh, big one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you can go to our website and sign up for that as well. Again, if you have any questions, email us at info@blendedkingdomfamilies.com. We can't wait to see you guys next month. Y'all have a blessed day.
Guys, take care.